So, did anyone else not know that Pestilence was still kicking after all this time? Or is it just me? Fuck me, I got a lot of catching up to do, I guess. Exitivm, or however the flying fuck it's pronounced, is the ninth studio album from Dutch death metal crew Pestilence. A factoid that I'm frankly struggling with because, to my knowledge, Pestilence disbanded back in 1994 after releasing genre-defining classics like Consuming Impulses and Testimony of the Ancients, as well as the criminally underrated progressive metal and jazz fusion experiment of Spheres. And while that is true, apparently nobody at any fucking point in the last 11, 12 years or so bothered to tell me that Pestilence reunited in 2008, put out a brand new album in 2009, and have since put out new music roughly every 3 to 4 years. Holy shit, how did I fucking miss that? Unaware of, and as a result of that, unaffected by, nearly everything the band has put out in the last 11 fucking years. Which, honestly, I'm hoping isn't all that impressive, because I'm not looking forward to a bunch of goddamn fucking death metal nerds telling me, "How could you not know?" Apparently that's my impression of a death metal nerd, I don't know. Not my best, I'll be the first to admit. You know what? It doesn't really matter. We should get back to the matter at hand, which is discussing and dissecting the quality of this new Pestilence record. Is it a masterpiece? Is it a flaming disaster? Is it somewhere in the middle? Does it convince me that I really should start paying more attention to Pestilence in the near future, and that by extension I should check out more of their recent material, their modern output? Well, kinda. I mean, I'm not, like, blown away by it, but it's pretty fun. Yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it's a very straightforward record. It's pretty easy to digest and understand. There are some thrashy flavors and undertones and definitely a lot of technicality. Definitely a very polished, clean production. Altogether, it reminds me more of Vector than it does old school Pestilence, but that's not really a bad thing per se, especially when, I'm sure as y'all know, Vector ain't really doing a whole lot right now, so this'll fill the void quite nicely for the time being. Despite some very poorly produced, overdramatic, and just flat-out unnecessary orchestral and electronic interludes and passages, the music is mostly pretty urgent and performed with a lot of immediacy and power. The second track on the record, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce because I'm guaranteed going to butcher it, officially kickstarts this album with some very spicy and explosive death thrash. The really sharp percussion alongside that kind of classic tech death riffery reminds me of like a more progressive take on Steve Tucker era Morbid Angel, and to some extent even some of the more death metal oriented material of Revocation. There are some pretty one-dimensional kind of synthesizer parts that are found throughout the track, particularly in the latter half, but none of them really get in the way of anything, and to their benefit, they do kind of make this feel all the more spacey and trippy, which I think is what Pestilence is going for. The following two tracks, which I think are pronounced Deificus and Sempiternus, I don't really know, and I also don't care because I'm a fucking moron, definitely lean a bit further into that, like, early 90s kind of tech death flavor. I'm reminded again of Morbid Angel with some of those sick, churning, groove-laden passages, but the percussive beatdowns and just the sharpness of this whole thing also reminds me a lot of some vintage Suffocation and also Testimony of the Ancients from Pestilence. I think one of my favorite tracks on the record is probably the fifth cut, though, Internissionum, where the band really embrace a lot of their sci-fi thrash metal influence. There are a lot of angular guitar progressions and riffs and wailing solos that remind me a lot of, like, Killing Technology mixed with Dimension Hatros era Voivod. This track also best utilizes a lot of the orchestral and atmospheric keyboard sound scattered across the record, giving this genuine weight, giving this genuine size and scale. I'm also weirdly digging the kind of meat-headed groove metal of Inficiat. It's a genuinely pretty unpredictable cut with a bunch of really fun bouncy grooves and some really strained, agonizing vocals, which makes this feel really fucking brutal. On that note as well, I'd like to add that Patrick Mameli does a pretty good job across this entire record. His vocals are definitely drier than I remember, and you can definitely tell that he is at times stretching his vocals far beyond their limits. But hey, I'm not gonna fault the guy for trying, especially when he's been doing this for like over 30 years and still sounds better, frankly, than a lot of death metal vocalists out there. I think the bigger issue this album has is filler material, to be honest. I mean, even despite being 38 minutes long, it feels like there's a lot of material that really just doesn't need to be here, not because it's outright terrible, but more so just because it's not as memorable, not as effective, not as pungent or potent or tasty. The atmospheric and electronic passages that I mentioned earlier, I think, are a bit of a problem as well. None of this, with a few exceptions, is very well integrated, and it frankly just doesn't sound all that good. The opening instrumental, in particular in Omnibus, was a real fucking slog to get through, not just on my second and third playthrough of this record, but also on my very first. It's so needlessly overdramatic and trying so hard to be so epic and so powerful that it just looks kind of silly. Still, I had enough fun with this death metal roller coaster that I'd be willing to give the album a 3 out of 5, you know? There are definitely some bumps, some things that need to be ironed out, some things that need to be fixed, but hey, it's a wooden roller coaster, it's pretty old, you get what you fucking pay for sometimes. I leave this album pleasantly surprised that Pestilence still sound pretty good after all this time, and genuinely kind of excited to check out some of the band's other modern material. In fact, since we're on the topic, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any particular Pestilence album from 2009 to now that you think I just really need to check out, that I need to prioritize over the rest, let me know in the comments below. Yeah, I think that's it for me, honestly. You know, it's not on the level of Consuming Impulse or Testimony of the Ancients or even Spheres, but it's not really trying to be. I don't think it wants to be. I think it just wants and tries to be a dumb, fun kind of thrash death record with a lot of technicality and crazy guitar pyrotechnics, and I think that's what it does. I think it succeeds, and yeah, that's kind of it. So yeah, 3 out of 5. It's a pretty decent record. I'm looking forward to checking out their other stuff. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.